Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My Two Cent Nintendo/gaming video for this week, for the week of February 7th to the 13th. And in case any of you want to know or anything like that, this week was my birthday, February 11th, so happy birthday to me. I am 39 years old, 1 year away from going into the big 4-0 and all that stuff, and eventually turning into one of those, going to be talking about those like when I was your age, yeah, that kind of stuff. So yep, 39 years old I am this week and all that stuff. So happy birthday to me and all that stuff, and thanks to those on Facebook who wished me a happy birthday and all that stuff. I really appreciated it though. Thank you for that and all. Anyway, for this video we got basically 4 stuff to cover this week, including Ubisoft, which released some of their fiscal earnings, which turned out to be good, but also sort of a different direction they might go to a certain degree, or shall we say, less reliance on AAA games. Stadia unfortunately gets itself into another hot water, this time with a developer who is not happy with the way Google has handled some of their situation. Amazon comments about basically about their commitment to like Amazon game studios and all that stuff, and a rumor that started to spread in regards of the Halo Master Chief Collection, which led to some speculations of it could have come to another platform, but obviously that wasn't the case or anything like that though. But before we get started, we'll do what I like to call the quick My Two Cent parts, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going into a huge amount of details, including one has to do with a movie or TV show related. If in fact it has to do with in regards of the Mandalorian and all that stuff. But anyway, the first one is that it is reported that the Prince of Persia remake that was supposed to come out, I think earlier this year though, has now been delayed indefinitely as Ubisoft basically works on the game though. A lot of it, some people speculate, it stems to the whole idea that the visuals didn't exactly look that great and all that stuff, so that's one of the reasons why the game is delayed. That, and not to mention there have been reports about a Switch version happening, but Ubisoft never has confirmed it, despite it popping up here and there, so we'll have to wait and see if that turns out to be true, but hopefully we'll hear more about the remake of Prince of Persia soon. We also learned that Destructoid will be Playtonic is revealing something special that they will be revealing soon, and I believe it has to do with, and I think this just came out, has to do with the whole idea that they are, I think, working with a new publisher and all that stuff, and still working on some new games and all, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes for Playtonic. We learned that Crash Bandicoot 4 is indeed finally coming to the Nintendo Switch, along with a PS5 and Xbox Series X and S version as well. It will be out in March though, and it will be much cheaper than the other versions, which will be, I've been hearing, like around $70. And while it won't have the bells and whistles of the PS5 or the Xbox Series S and X, it has been reported that it will be running at 1080p in docked, 720p undocked, at supposedly at 30 frames per second, which as long as it runs at a stable 30 frames per second though, then I'm okay with this and all. It certainly is. I mean, yes, it won't have the bells and whistles as the other versions are, but at least as long as it runs well on the Nintendo Switch, that is perfectly fine with me. We also learned that there is a listing or a report coming out that apparently Star Wars Republic Commando could be making its way over to the Nintendo Switch, and it apparently has to do with a listing that has recently popped up though. Now, this game supposedly was originally an exclusive on the original Xbox, and I believe it made its way over to the PC. So I'm very curious to see this one if it does come to the Nintendo Switch. I'm leaning towards this one's going to be more than likely coming to the Nintendo Switch, considering we've gotten other Star Wars games over to the Nintendo Switch, older ones, minus, Knights of the Old Republic, which would be nice if they brought that one over, indeed. We also learned that E3 this year will be all digital, supposedly, though. This has to do with after last year when it was canceled due to the whole COVID-19 situation that we are still currently in at this time, all that stuff. And it will be very interesting how well this all digital E3 does. And if it does do well, though, it will be wondering if this is the direction that E3 will be going forward to. And last but not least, though, in a non-gaming one, movie-related though, one of the actresses from the hit Disney Plus TV show The Mandalorian, saw season 2, really good. I'm hoping to see how season 3 plays out though. Has recently been fired from Lucasfilms and Disney after posting a comment that is considered by many to be controversial. The article that I have from NBC News reads that she was ousted from The Mandalorian and has made the move to make movies with the Daily Wire. She's drawn criticism from a social media post though. Basically, the post the announcement came 2 days after Lucasfilm, the Disney-owned company behind Star Wars spin-off series, said it no longer employed Carlo, K-A-R-A-N-O, who most recently compared hating someone for their political views to the persecution of Jews during the Holocaust in the Instagram post, though. And it's not the only controversy that she has gotten into. She's also ridiculed people wearing masks and endorsed basic claim of voter fraud in the 2020 presidential election, which we all saw how that was used for what happened on the Capitol building on January 6, 2021, though. Personally, on that one, I say what you will, call this a political statement, call it whatever you want to. I have no sympathy for those who basically push those kind of voter frauds, that kind of claim that led to what happened on January 6, 2021, or those who disregard basically those wearing masks, which, let's be honest, where I work, I have to wear a mask and all. I'm trying to do what I can to protect myself from the coronavirus, let alone trying to compare, pull this cancel culture crap, like trying to compare your political views to what the Jews were during World War II and all that stuff. I'm not buying that argument one single bit, though, okay? And I think her, like many people, are learning hard lessons that if you post it out there, then it's there forever, and you may have to deal with the kind of backlash you may generate if you put something out there that's controversial and all that stuff. So I'm not buying her argument of cancel culture. I think that's a load of crap, but that's my view on it, and I'm going to stand behind that point of view. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, we'll get started with our first story. And this one has to do with the Halo Master Chief Collection, and with an interesting statement that came out that was later we learned about what it really meant, though. Now, one of the games that was launched on the original Xbox One was the Halo Master Chief Collection. This was a collection of Halo 1, 2, 3, I believe 4, and 4 OTS, though, into one disc and all that stuff. And at the time, that sounded like a great idea, but when this game launched, though, it was met with major criticism. Particularly, there were reports of people claiming about, the online matches not doing great, to basically bugs and all that stuff. Now, over time, the game has been fixed courtesy of 343 Industries, which is also handling Halo Infinite, which supposedly, barring any major delays, that game will be out sometime this year in fall 2021 and all that stuff, though. But anyway, since then, Halo Master Chief Collection has seen some improvements and all that stuff. Recently, it got an updated to basically run on the Xbox Series S and X and all that stuff. And it certainly isn't a bad collection if you're trying to if you never got into the Halo games, or if you want to catch up to Halo and all that stuff. Well, this week, though, there was speculation on Halo Waypoint that gave the impression that this could have opened the door to the possibility that we could see the Master Chief Collection coming to maybe another system, even the Switch and all that stuff, though. In an article first posted on by, let me see if I can get it out. Okay, from comicbook.com, it reads that, quote, "A new teaser from 343 Industry has indicated that Halo, the Master Chief Collection, could soon be coming to a new platform. While specifics on this tease aren't really clear at the moment, we should find out what the studio is indicating within the coming weeks." In a new blog on the official Halo website, 343 Industry, it announced that it will be doing new flights, otherwise known as betas, for Halo Master Chief Collection at either the end of February or the beginning of March. While full details of what this flight will offer weren't given, 343 did say that this upcoming phase would perhaps give players a new place and way to play. The wording is rather mysterious, but it makes it seem as though the beloved remastered collection of the Halo series could be coming to another platform. The article reads that, quote, "However, before you get too excited at the prospect of Halo Master Chief Collecting landing on a device like the Nintendo Switch, which I certainly wouldn't be against if that ever does happen though, there's likely a better explanation for what this tease here. For starters, many fans have been asking for a custom game browser for quite some time. This edition would let people join custom multiplayer games at will, which would be wonderful. Conservatively, there's also a chance that Halo Master Chief Collection could be coming to an entirely new PC storefront. At the moment, the game is currently available to be downloaded via Steam and the Microsoft Store, but the Epic Game Store is notably absent for this lineup. As such, it could stand to reason that Halo Master Chief Collection could come to the Epic Game Store in the near future. Regardless of what the tease here, 343 said it will share more specific of this upcoming flight once it actually starts a date in mind. Furthermore, it was stressed that things could change within the coming weeks, meaning that this new way to play this collection may not actually appear in the forthcoming flight. Now, following this release, though, the site Pure Xbox put up an article that they read that just came out on Friday, which this video will come up on Saturday. Reading that, it says that excuse me, no, Halo Master Chief Collection's new way to play isn't a new platform. According to the article, it reads that, quote, "Remember last week when 343 Industries sparked a lot of speculation by announcing Halo the Master Chief Collection was getting a new way to play? Turns out it was referring to a custom game browser. This has been revealed in the February flight plan for Halo Master Chief Collection, which states that the custom game browser will offer a new way to play with each other, and you can get a glimpse. They show a screenshot and all that stuff. Though the Halo Master Chief Collection team will be fighting other features for Halo Insiders as early as Thursday, February 18th, which will include a new map for Halo Online. Assuming the new place 343 was also referring to last week. According to some of the stuff here, it reads that, quote, "Custom game browsers, a new way to play with each other in Master Chief Collection, Season 6 content, a new map for Halo 3 for Halo Online, FOV sliders for support for all Xbox One consoles. FOV sliders will no longer be locked when Xbox Series S and X devices are set to 120 Hz. Double key binding, mouse and keyboard support for console, advanced audio option, and view model customization option. Until ultimately then, despite plenty of speculations, there's no sign of a separate version of Halo Master Chief Collection coming to another platform anytime soon, although we sure it'll expand to xCloud on ISO and PC later in 2021. So, assuming what Pure Xbox is saying is correct, it sounds like this new way to play is just updated features for the Master Chief Collection currently available on, I believe, the Xbox One and Xbox Series S and X, which, I mean, when I heard this announcement, though, I kind of kept my expectations unchecked on this one, because as much as I would have loved to see the Master Chief Collection come to the Nintendo Switch, considering that Microsoft and Nintendo have kind of cozied up a little bit, especially with games like Ori and the Will and the Wasp and the Blind Forest and Cuphead coming to the Nintendo Switch, I thought it would be kind of interesting to see if something like the Master Chief Collection would come to the Nintendo Switch. But obviously, this is, in the end, assuming what Pure Xbox is saying is correct, it sounds like this is just more adding some new features to the Master Chief Collection, all that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, somewhat a little disappointed because I would have liked to see it come to the Nintendo Switch, but it's not something to lose absolute sleep over. I mean, is it possible it could maybe one day come to the Nintendo Switch, though? Again, there's always that possibility, but at the end of the day, no matter what, that's going to be Microsoft's decision, and whatever choice they make, that's their call. If they decide not to, they decide not to. I mean, if that's the case, then the only way they're going to play Master Chief Collection is either get an Xbox, or like Series S, X, or One, or play it on PC if that's the case. So, overall, interesting features that they added to the Halo Master Chief Collection, though, but at the same time, if you were one of those hoping that it would mean that Halo Master Chief Collection was coming to the Nintendo Switch, then obviously you probably, then to me that sounds like maybe you kind of raised your expectation maybe a wee bit too high, and all that stuff. So, but nevertheless, more features, that's nice and all that stuff. Hopefully they're handling the Master Chief Collection. Hopefully they've learned their lesson, and I do hope that Halo Infinite comes out in a more positive light than what we saw last year, though. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, and this one has to do with Amazon and supposedly their commitment to Amazon Game Studios and all that stuff. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the situation surrounding Amazon Game Studio. Now, when most people think of Amazon, they think of the company where you buy your stuff and they ship it over and all that stuff. But Amazon has also experimented with other things, though. Some with success, some with not so much success. But some of their successes are like the Amazon Amazon movie studios, or their TV shows, especially ones like The Man in the High Castle and all that stuff. But they've also dipped their hands into sort of gaming and all, from their game studio to their upcoming gaming streaming service, Amazon Lunar, and all that stuff, which as of right now is continuing to be still in beta as we speak. However, Amazon Game Studio has had some bumpy roads and all that stuff. While it's and all that, and most of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the games that they have produced so far, particularly on the multiplayer side, have been major flops. One of those obviously was last year's Cubicle, apologize if I'm saying it incorrectly, that supposedly was in such a bad state to the point that Amazon basically pulled the game from the storefront, particularly Steam, and put it in a closed beta to test out to see what people did and didn't like. And well, eventually the Amazon Game Studio basically pulled the plug on that game altogether. Not to mention they're having their upcoming game, New World, and all that stuff, which also got in some controversy over certain description or certain approach or description of certain group of people and all that stuff that kind of triggered some people coming off as being very, very offensive, although many people have debates about that, though. But it looks like the new CEO who stepped in after Jeff Bezos, who was originally the CEO of Amazon, stepped down to do another role in that stuff, who is still committed to basically Amazon Game Studio for the moment, though. In an article reported by CNET, it reads that Amazon's new CEO, Andy Jassy, wanted to keep Amazon Game Studios going, report says. Earlier this week, Jassy reportedly told employees that Amazon Game Studios will get there if we stay focused. The article reads that, quote, Amazon's next CEO is reportedly committed to keeping the company game development studio going. This person assured Amazon Game Studio employees that when it takes longer to become successful, it's often sweeter than becoming successful immediately. Bloomberg reported Wednesday, citing an internal email. Some businesses take off in the first year, and others take many years. Jassy wrote to Amazon Game staff on Tuesday, though we haven't constantly succeeded yet in Amazon Game Studio. I believe we will if we hang in there. Current CEO Jeff Bezos announced Tuesday he would be handing over the reins to the company to Jassy, the current head of Amazon's web service, later this year. Amazon launched its game development studio in 2012, but had to lay off employees and suffer poor feedbacks of major games Crucible, if I'm saying the name correctly, last year. Amazon then announced a cloud gaming service called Lunar in September 2020, which runs off the tech giant's Amazon Web Service. A Lunar Plus subscription will cost $5.99 per month and require either a $50 controller for the Surface, an Xbox or PS4 controller, or a mouse and a keyboard and all that stuff. So while that certainly sounds nice, and I'm glad that they seem to be a bit more committed to the studio than compared to what we saw last year with, last week, with Google announced that they were shutting down their games and studios, but keeping Stadia going all for the time being, though. So I'll applaud the fact that they are certainly committed, though, but it does, at the same time, that it does sound like if this report from Jason Schreier from Bloomberg is correct, though, given, Jason Schreier's reporting and all that stuff, it sounds like Amazon Game Studio has certainly a ways to go, and there's certainly a lot of issues it needs to address. From an article posted on IGN, it reads that a new extensive report from Bloomberg has detailed some of the dysfunction and struggles at Amazon Game Studio, which includes canceled projects, a troublesome game engine, mismanagement, and a bro culture that allegedly does not give women the same opportunity as men. The report began by discussing how Mike Frazee, F-R-A-Z-Z-I-N-I, was brought in to start Amazon Studios 8 years ago without even making a game. Since then, this person at Amazon Game Studio has released only 2 games, and have seen multiple canceled projects that were attempting to recreate the financial or magic of games like Fortnite and League of Legends. The Grand Tour game, which was first Amazon Game Studio's console release, and within a year, it was removed from the storefront. Cubisco was the next game released from the studio, and not only did it return to closed beta after its official launch, it was shut down on November 2020. 2 other projects, which are known as Intensity and Nova, never saw the light of day after the team tried and failed to create a game inspired by Fortnite and League of Legends, respectively, though. All of these cancellations and unsuccessful projects that Amazon Game Studio have done so despite Amazon spending nearly $500 million a year operating its game division. It's also important to note that the amount doesn't include Twitch or Amazon Lunar, which is under different management. Franzi is an Amazon lifer who started his career in the book section of Amazon.com, where he endeared himself to Jeff Bezos as a manager there. He began his role as the head of the games division by bringing in some of the best game development team in the world, including Portal's, those who worked on Portal, Far Cry 2, Madden, and EverQuest. Only one of the members still remains. According to numerous current and former employees of FRAZZINIS Game Studio, he continually ignored much of the advice given by these experienced developers, and despite frequently telling the staff that every Amazon game should be a billion-dollar franchise, he would then understaff projects. Furthermore, instead of using industry-leading game engines like Unreal Engine or Unity, the studio opted to license technology from Crytek to create a homemade engine known as Lumberyard, though. While Lumberyard was meant to integrate with Amazon's web service and could have been a cheaper alternative than paying for the other engines, it ended up being known as a boogeyman around the office. Many cited it was painfully slow, and developers would play Halo or watch Amazon Prime videos as they wait for Lumberyard to process art or compile code. One former employee even went so far to say his Lumberyard is killing this company. Another big issue with working at Amazon Game Studio is said to be linked to the bro culture that has become cultivated there, in which women were often not given the same opportunity as men. Beyond that, 4 female game developers said their work experience of sexism in the industry were at Amazon. There were stories of them being ignored and undermined by male executives, in some cases being driven out of the company. One source said that not only did males on the senior leadership team impair her career growth after she disagreed with him, he would then go on to create new management positions above her and hire men to take those positions. Amazon's game problems also extend to how they incites their employees. While most studios pay bonuses based on critical and commercial response to the game, Amazon stock plans only rewards employees for how long they have been at the company. This has led to some employees choosing to prioritize job preservation over anything else, says 3 former employees, though. Amazon Studios Amazon Game Studio's next project is the MMO New World. Originally planned for a 2020 release, it was pushed back to spring 2021 to improve the quality of the game. Bloomberg's report explained that the project was originally going to be a survival game where players would take on the role of a colonist in a fictional version of 1600 America. The problem, however, was that the enemies portrayed originally were going to face and look like a lot of like the indigenous people. When developers pointed out to the Frazzie's deputy, Patrick Gilmore, that the setting and the villains could be considered racist, he expressed disbelief. Amazon did eventually hire a tribal counsel who did find that the portrayal was offensive, and the Native American imagery has since been removed. So if what this report from IGN, where they picked up from Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, if this report is necessarily true, it sounds to me like Amazon Game Studio has a lot of work cut out for them, though. When you combine this and the fact that they've produced 2 flops and all that stuff so far, it does make you kind of wonder how long are they going to keep pumping money into Amazon Game Studio to the point where it's like, why are we continuing to support this? This is like just a dead wood just drifting right over here, though. So there's going to be a point where it's like either they're going to kill Amazon Game Studio, or they're going to have to be a major structural change there, and that includes firing some of these higher ups who seem to be not doing a great job at Amazon Game Studios. And if they're very serious and committed to it, though, there's going to have to be some major changes there. So overall, I applaud the fact that they are committed to Amazon Game Studios, but if they are very serious about it, though, and based on the report from Jason Schreier from Bloomberg, they have ways to go, and they seriously are going to have to change the attitude and the culture there and really overhaul a lot of things if they want Amazon Game Studio to be a actual success and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with a situation involving Google Stadia and a developer that's not happy with the way the folks over at Google are basically handling certain things, and has led to a point of them canceling the game on Google Stadia. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at another situation surrounding Google Stadia. Particularly, it has to do with a developer that has decided that they will not be bringing their game over to Google Stadia and all this stuff. Google, I will say, has been having a hard time with Stadia before. It's Stadia, pretty much. When it originally launched in 2019, it was met with mixed reviews, at least, though. While some people did like the service and what Google was doing, others felt it was like you were paying money when they had the Founders Edition out of just a beta and all that stuff. And a lot of people felt like they overpromised a lot of things, that there were stuff that really were not ready to go and all that stuff. And many viewed it as Google was just launching this to get their foot out of the door in regards of cloud gaming. Now, I've tried Google Stadia on my Mac, though, and all that stuff, and I will say it works based on my internet connection and all that stuff. It does work, though, but I do think Google just made some decisions that kind of hurt it a little bit and all that stuff. And I still think, while I do believe cloud gaming has potential, I still think there are some hurdles that have to be overcome and all that. Now, last week, Google has announced that they were shutting down their first-party development team and will be focusing on just Google Stadia alone. Some people speculated that this was the end of Stadia and all that stuff. Others don't see it that way. Like I said before last week, I'm taking sort of a wait-and-see approach to see where this is all going to head and all that stuff. It's possible this could be the end of Stadia, but it's also possible that may not happen at all. But in either case, though, it seems as though there is an issue emerging with one developer over how things have been going on with Google and all that stuff that has led to the point that they've decided that they will not be bringing their games over to Google Stadia. In an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that Terra, Terraria, developer cancels Stadia port in retaliation to YouTube ban. It reads that, quote, Realogic, the developer of the popular action-adventure sandbox game Terraria, has said it's canceled the game's planned Stadia port in retaliation for Google banning its YouTube channel without explanation. The independent developer first alerted fans to its conflict with Google last month when it claimed that it has lost access to its YouTube channel and associated Gmail account and was struggling to receive an explanation from Google. According to Realogic, it received an email warning of a service violation on its YouTube channel and soon after the entire associated Google was disabled. It has not uploaded a public video to YouTube for 3 months, it said. YouTube's Twitter support account actually did reply to Terra developers in January, advising it to follow steps listed on its website. However, the developers claimed that this didn't help. The disabled Google account linked into many of Realogic's business functions, and as such, the impact of the company is quite substantial, it says. On Monday, founder Andrew Spinkel, S-P-I-N-K-S, claimed that after 3 weeks of attempting to resolve the issue, he would cancel Terra for Stadia because I can't take this no other way than you decided to burn this bridge. He wrote on Twitter at Google, my account has now been disabled for over 3 weeks. I still have no idea why, and after using every resource I have to give this resolved, you have done nothing but give me the runaround. My phone has lost access to thousands of dollars of apps on Google at Google Play. I had just bought LOTR 4K and can't finish it. My at Google Drive data is completely gone. I can't access my YouTube channel. The worst of all, losing is access to my Gmail address for over 15 years. I have not done anything to violate your terms of service, so I could take this as no other way than you decided to burn this bridge. Consider it burned. Hashtag Terra for at Google Stadia is canceled. My company will no longer support any of your platforms moving forward. I will not be involved with a corporation that values their customers and partners, so little. Doing business with you is a liability. At the time of publishing, Realogic YouTube channel was still suspended. While existing videos can still be viewed, the channel's profile picture indicates that it has been banned and cannot upload new videos. As of March 2020, Terra has sold, Terraria, has sold 30 million copies across PC, consoles, and mobiles, according to its developers. Google confirmed last week that it has set to close all of its internal Stadia's games development team in a course change that will see the streaming platform focus on partnership with third-party game companies. Now, the article does indicate that it does seem like this is Google's fault and all that stuff, and I won't deny there may be truth to that and all that, so I can't ignore that though. But in one of the comment sections from this article from Video Game Chronicles, somebody says that believes that might not be 100% the case. The comment reads, quote, call it a hunch, but I think as this developers and more information come to light, it's likely that Mr. Spinky, S-P-I-N-K-S, may not be as innocent as this article seemed to imply. I really don't see any convincible benefit for Google to just outright ban this account for nothing whatsoever. Not even a suspension or a warning, temp ban, etc. As quoted in the above article, this was a well-established account with thousands of dollars of purchases over some 15 years connected with the best-selling game on the Play Store. And they just, abruptly decided to ban this guy on a whim? Nope. Sorry, Charlie, I'm not buying that story for a second. My guess is that this guy had to have at least done something, most likely something pretty significant, to violate Google's term of service. And whatever that something was, he messed up big time by doing it on his own main account, and now he's just trying to save face on social media. This is all just a hunch, of course, but something here is deliberately fishy. It'll be quite interesting to see how this develop as time progresses. You heard it first and all that. Another person responded by saying, you might be right, but Google should still explain to him what he did wrong. Even if he deserves being suspended, it's still a crappy thing to do to block someone from one account without giving proper explanation. That is, if he did something wrong. Maybe it's just an AI bug that targeted his account for doing something wrong or illegally by mistake. So, on one hand, you have an article that points out that the developer is claiming that Google and Stadia screwed him over. On the other hand, you have some comments that are saying that some are saying that might not be the case, as it could have been he could have done something wrong as well. So both are possible. I can't rule out that one scenario could be right and one scenario could be wrong on this. But regardless of whether this is true or not, this is still a bad news for Stadia nevertheless. I mean, it's just adds to another problem that Google's been facing with Stadia lately. Even if Google didn't do anything wrong and the developer did or anything like that, it's still going to look bad on them nevertheless. And whatever issue it is, I really think Google needs to sort of fix this right now. And if they're very serious about Stadia, they need to really overhaul a lot of things, ranging from a PR standpoint to, I think, bring somebody new in to handle Google Stadia. Like, I personally think that Phil Harrison needs to go. I think they need to hire someone else that can handle it and do it better if Google's very serious about Stadia, though. So, overall, not a great news. Regardless of whether you side with this developer or if you side with Google, and whether or not Google was right or if this developer is right, no matter how you look at this, though, this is still bad news for Stadia nevertheless. And it adds another black eye to a situation involving Stadia it just adds another problem to it, though. Hopefully it will be addressed, but time will ultimately tell if that happens or not. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with Ubisoft, including some their fiscal report, including some games that they're happy that are doing very well, to a different approach they might be taking in regards of AAA games. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, I'm going to be taking a look at Ubisoft, in which they have released their recent quarter earnings, not to mention some of the games they seem to have done well, particularly on One Pacific system, though, and about sort of moving away from just relying on or at least somewhat moving away from just relying on AAA games and all that stuff. Now, Ubisoft is a company that has a love-hate relationship with a lot of the consumers there. Some people like the games that they've put out. Others feel like every time they produce a game, it has the same Ubisoftness into it, particularly their open worlds. Also, not everyone is a fan of their push to DRMs and, putting microtransactions, including in $60 games and all that stuff, although none of them have reached the level, at least not at the level of, say, what we've seen with, like, Star Wars Battlefront 2 with loot boxes, though, but nevertheless, not everyone is a big fan of that approach and all that stuff. And last year, Ubisoft came under fire for lots of reasons, ranging from the toxic workplace and environment, allegations of like sexual harassment and all that stuff. So they're sort of like, in my view, they're kind of like the lesser of the two evils in a way. On one hand, I do think they are somewhat better than, say, EA, because at least they're also committed to single-player games, which is great, but at the same time, there are certainly a lot of decisions that also are not beloved by a lot of folks and all that stuff. Despite that, though, it does seem that Ubisoft definitely released their financial earnings, and it seems to be that a lot of their games have done very well, including Assassin's Creed Valhalla and, of course, Immortal Phoenix Rising, though. Let me get it up. In the first article from Game Industry Biz, it reads that, quote, Ubisoft's biggest lineup of new releases have produced its biggest quarter ever. The publisher today reported its financial results from the holiday quarter, prompting the CEO of Ubisoft to call it the strongest quarter in Ubisoft's history. For the third fiscal quarter, the 3 months ending December 31st, Ubisoft reportedly net bookings of just over 1 billion euros, which is I believe it's euros, which is $1.21 billion, up 120% year over year, thanks to the packed slate features in cross-gen debuts of Watch Dogs Legions, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Immortal Phoenix Rising, and Just Dance 2021. Last year's third quarter was headlined by the release of Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint and Just Dance 2020, though. Valhalla was said to be the biggest launch in the franchise history, not in unit sales. That still belongs to Assassin's Creed 3 with 12 million units sold in its first few months, but in terms of overall bookings and engagement, Just Dance also enjoyed a strong quarter, with Just Dance 2021 being the series' best-selling entry in 6 years, while even back catalog sales in the franchise saw a more than 200% surge. Excuse me. In post-earnings call, the CEO said he was very happy with the launch of family-oriented Immortals and said it would have long legs. For Watch Dogs Legion, Ubisoft was pleased with the reception from players and critics and saw an increase in engagement compared to Watch Dogs 2, but did not comment on how it actually sold. The raft of new releases likely shift the company's digital-physical mix, as 59% of net bookings in the quarters were digital, compared to 77% in the same stretch in 2019. While Ubisoft's quarters of big new releases from the quarter was a focus, and the publisher also underscored the benefit of seeing from its backlogs and continued consumer spending on older releases, though. In a context of increased engagement and very supportive industry trends, the first 9 months of the year has confirmed that we are actually continuing to move forward in an increasing pronounced recurrence of our revenues. Therefore, we expect our highly profitable back catalog to account for even larger shares of our business going forward though. The publisher added that it was the top publisher in terms of combined units across all platforms in 2020, and the top third-party publisher on the Nintendo Switch, though. But they also pointed out that even in the light of significant growth it has experienced this fiscal year, Ubisoft also is expected to grow still more in the fiscal 2020, thanks to a state of 3 AAA titles released, back catalogs, and a new free-to-play title that is expected to lead a ramp-up of activities in that market, though. So obviously, Ubisoft certainly is doing very well. Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Immortal Phoenix Rising, and Watch Dogs Legions was definitely a big hit for them, and became the one of the best third-party publishers on the Nintendo Switch, which is interesting because in an article from VentureBeats, they're saying that they're reaping the benefits of Nintendo Switch's huge success. According to the article, it reads that, quote, Nintendo's massive Switch sales are translating into gains for the other companies. Ubisoft emphasized its support for the hybrid home handheld console is directly contributing to its bottom line. Ubisoft announced in its quarterly financial report today that it is the top third-party publisher on a Nintendo device. We are also reaping the benefit of the Switch's huge success and our position as a leading third-party publisher on the platform, thanks to, among others, our Just Dance and Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Ubisoft's chief financial officer. The depth and breadth of our catalog, which goes beyond the brand mentioned, provide us with ever great visibility and continues to be a strong drive of profitability, though. During the call with investors today, Ubisoft said that Immortal Phoenix Rising is also performing well on the Switch. That game, along with other Ubisoft hits on Switch and other platforms, contributed to Ubisoft having its best months in December. A key question remains, however, regarding Ubisoft's future support of the Switch. The publisher will, of course, continue investing in Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and now games like the upcoming Star Wars project from developer Massive, but it will continue peeling off resources to release new games for Switch as the Xbox Series S and X and PS5 widens the gap in terms of tech. So far, Ubisoft has said nothing about a follow-up to Mario plus Rabbids, and they have announced no similar project, but it is possible that something like that is coming, and the company are holding it until closer to release. At least a new Just Dance is almost guaranteed to come to the Switch in 2021. So it looks like for them, the Switch is certainly giving them money and all that stuff. They are pretty happy with how everything's are going on the Nintendo Switch. And it's nice to know that Immortal Phoenix Rising is doing very well, especially on the Nintendo Switch 2. Sounds like to me that game is doing better than what Starlink Battle of Atlas did when that game came out. That one, unfortunately, did not do as well. Although I do remember hearing how that one did better on the Switch, though, than the PS4 and Xbox One, but even with it doing well on the Switch, it still wasn't enough to become a success for that franchise and all that stuff. But nice to see that Immortal Phoenix Rising is doing very well. Hopefully we'll see another entry in the series and all that stuff. I would like to see another entry, and hopefully that other entry will come to the Nintendo Switch. Yet, despite all that success and all that stuff, it seems as though Ubisoft might be changing their direction in terms of basically what they're going to do in regards of AAA titles. In an article from IGN, it reads that Ubisoft is moving away from reliance on AAA releases, though. It reads that, quote, Ubisoft doesn't want to be as reliant on AAA games release as it has in the past, and will instead look most closely to free-to-play game and its back catalog to make money. In an earnings call today following the company's third quarter financial result, the publisher said its plans for fiscal 2022, the period between April 2021 through March 2022, includes 3 AAA games released, but that in the future, Ubisoft didn't want AAA games to be the focus of its business model. We said for a number of years that our normal template is to come with either 3 to 4 AAA games, so we'll stick to that plan for fiscal 2022, said the CFO of Ubisoft. But we see that we are progressively continuing to move from a model that used to be only focused on AAA releases to a model where we have to have a combination of strong releases of AAAs and strong back catalog dynamics, but also compelling our programs of new release with free-to-play and other premium experience. So he went on to specifically that the company has a number of AAA titles and otherwise in the pipeline, naming Far Cry 6, Rainbow Six Quarantine, Skulls and Bones, Rider Republic, The Prince of Persia Sands of Time Remake, and Roller Champions. He also noted to a previous announced Assassin's Creed mobile game plan to come to China with the help of Ubisoft's investor Tencent, which he said was a part of the company's wrapping up investment and interest in free-to-play games, especially on mobile. Mobile currently makes up 9% of the company's total business, though. In fiscal 2022, we will continue our evolution from a AAA release-centric model towards a model where AAA stands along new premiums and free-to-play innovation experience across platforms. These diverse experiences will feed on each other through compelling gameplay and business model. Notably, there wasn't a single mention on the call about Ubisoft's free-to-play game Royal Hyperscape, which flopped tremendously at launch and is currently undergoing a overhaul. So on this one, I'm kind of sort of like mixed on Ubisoft's response on this, though. On one hand, I think it's great that they're not going to rely too heavily on AAA games, and I think that's good. I think you should look at maybe like smaller or mid-tier titles instead. I think that certainly is a good thing. But at the same time, they're relying on free-to-play and all that stuff, and we've seen, well, let's just say we've seen how developers have pushed free-to-play games in $60 games, and we've seen the backlash of that. See Star Wars Battlefront 2 with the whole loot box situation. So I'm a little iffy on their decision to take this kind of take the approach they are. I understand they want to not rely too heavily on AAA games, which I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but to bring in free-to-play, I'm not really sure. I'm not really comfortable with that, though. I would rather them instead focus on maybe bringing mid-tier titles or smaller titles over, though, instead than taking the free-to-play road. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we're talking about, free game to download and all that, I mean, a little bit more tolerable than, just to say a little bit more tolerable on that. But when we're talking about something along the lines of a $60 game, a microtransaction, or in this case on the PS4 and Xbox One, Xbox Series S and X, a $70, it's a little though. So I'm kind of mixed on this, on their new approach and all that stuff. But overall, it looks like Ubisoft is doing well financially, though. Immortal Phoenix Rising did very well, which I think is good. I hope to see another entry, and hopefully see we come to the Nintendo Switch. And while I'm glad that Ubisoft is not relying too heavily on AAA titles, I'm not too sure about mixing their AAA business with them relying also on free-to-play games. I'm a little iffy on it, though, but I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach how that turns out in the end. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about this announcement for Halo Master Chief Collection? Is it exactly what you expected in terms of their new way to play and all that stuff? Would you have rather have heard it come to say like the Master Chief Collection coming to the Epic Game Store, or actually one coming to the Nintendo Switch and all that stuff? Are you disappointed by this announcement? Are you not disappointed by this announcement at all? And like I said, did you kind of expect this kind of announcement and all? What are your thoughts about Amazon still committed to Amazon Game Studio? Do you think they should still be committed to the Game Studio and all that stuff? Do you think the studio needs an overhaul, including some of the reports that came out in regards to what's going on over there, courtesy of Bloomberg from Jason Schreier? Or do you think it's time that they kill off Amazon Game Studios for good? What are your thoughts about this conflict that seems to be going on between Google and the developers, and this one developer, though? Do you think Google's in the right for what they did? Do you think the developers are in the right, though? Do you think this will have add another negative impact to Stadia, or do you think you don't see this having any impact to Stadia at all? What are your thoughts about the financial report from Ubisoft and all that stuff? Are you not surprised that they made a lot of money, courtesy of, Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Watch Dogs Legion? Are you glad to see that Immortal Phoenix Rising is doing very well? Do you think this leads to the possibility of a sequel and all that stuff? And what do you think about them not relying too heavily on AAA games? Do you think this is a right move to take? Do you think this is a wrong move to take? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I do hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I do hope you subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Excuse me. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, wish you all a good day then. Bye.